Okay. We ready? Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by sending notices to the Record and the Ridgewood News, positioning notice of this Special Citizens Budget Committee meeting on the bulletin board in the lobby of the Borough Hall, and filing the notice of the same with the municipal clerk. To remind everyone present, we have 3 fire exits in council chambers, 2 to the front and 1 to the rear. We're on the record both by video and audio. If during the public portion of the meeting anyone wishes to speak, please just identify yourself for the record. Thank you. I'm going to turn the meeting over to our CFO. Alan?
Mayor, thank you. This morning we have several things to accomplish, the first of which is just to review the library appropriation. We have Dara O'Connor, 2 board members here to do that with us. If you turn to page 15 of your handout, that's 11.5 by 8.5 by 11. The short one starts with number 1 in the upper right-hand corner. Flip to page 15. This represents a spreadsheet on the third of the mill. All municipalities that have free public libraries are required to provide 1/3 of a mill of their equalized assessed valuation to the library for operating purposes. If you want to think about how that calculation rolls out, it's like 33 cents per $1,000 of equalized assessed valuation. We've used this spreadsheet over the years to calculate the amount of appropriation that's included in our budget in various categories to reach that 1/3 of the mill. I will say that in this town and in many towns, this mayor and council and past mayor and councils have appropriated more than the minimum amount that has been required by law, just generally speaking over the years. The categories that we look at, and these have been reviewed with Dara, are the compensation for 2014. Those are the full and part-time employees with a number down at the bottom for the pages. FICA or Social Security, the health benefits, netting out the amount of co-pays from the library personnel that receive those health benefits, pension calculation, a column for other expenses broken down into these $10,000 for the strategic plan and $90,313 for other expenses. And then we have a grand total. You'll see the grand total stands at $682,191.20. The 1/3 of the mill this year, as calculated by the state of New Jersey, is $559,016.47. That appears on the left-hand side of your page. The difference is $123,174.73 over the minimum amount. I noted also that there are other contributions that we make that are related to the maintenance of the grounds and the buildings. There are some utility expenses and other maintenance costs, but those are not included for purposes of the 1/3 of the bill calculation. So with that, Mayor, I would turn it over to the Library Director, Dara, just for a few comments on
Would you
this.
just mention also, Alan, that we have, of course, you just talked about minimum funding law, but also that there is a maximum funding. The maximum the library can be funded as well. And so this budget falls somewhere in between. The maximum funding law, I believe, is 15% over the previous year.
Expenditure, previous year's expenditures.
What is that number, Alan? What was last year's budget?
Last year's budget, I believe, was $613,587.95. $613,587.95. If you wanted to compare it to this spreadsheet.
It's about 11% more than last year.
Yeah. Now, do you want to explain what this includes? I touched on the strategic plan amount of 10,000, but there are some changes in the hours.
Yeah,
that you're
there's some
making.
changes, and we're going back to our presentation last December when we talked about our strategic plan and how we came up with what we needed to do in that strategic plan. And one of the main things we talked about was increasing hours of some part-time staff. Just to go back a little bit of history here, in 2010 we had a big budget cut of 19%. In order to make that cut, we reduced our full-time staff from 8 people to 4 people. So we have a lot more part-time people now than we had a few short years ago. In our strategic plan, we were told by the people of River Edge in no uncertain terms that priorities for the library going forward should be increasing hours of operation and increasing programs for adults and children. And so we worked that into our strategic plan. We figured that the most cost-effective way to do this is to give more hours to our part-time people that had certain part-time people that had been reduced in hours. In that way, we would be able to adequately staff the evenings that we are open, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and we would be able to provide significantly more programs for the people of River Edge, and we would be able to also increase by a few hours the hours of operation of the library. In fact, with this budget, we will be able to do all of those things in the first year of our plan. There's also 10,000 in that budget. We also call for 10,000 increase in the other expenses for each of the next 3 years. This would be year 1. The $10,000 would be would go towards improving the collection, which we're also told in no uncertain terms needs lots of help. I think if you recall back in December, I talked about how many people in River Edge go to Paramus Public Library to get what they need using their Buckles card. And that's okay. We want people to use their Buckles card. We want them to travel to other libraries. But as I explained to you, the numbers show that our residents for many, many, many years have been traveling in way too high numbers to other libraries. And we want them to come back and use our library more often. In fact, we're up there at the point where almost 40% of our borrowing is from other Buckles libraries, which that's the point above which Buckles will start to charge us. And so that has to be straightened out. We know how to do that. We know what areas need attention, and we just need help to do that. And we felt that, the board felt that, I felt that $10,000 was not a lot to ask. It would, over the course of 3 years, put into our hands the means to make these improvements. So that's it in a nutshell, folks.
All right, any questions, Ed?
Maybe Alan or Gal can answer. When Alan presents us with the budget numbers, generally he prorates the salaries for the current year based on when he thinks that either the budget is going to be approved or when people are going to start hiring. For example, we're anticipating hiring more police officers. We know we're supposed to hire 2 in April, so we don't pay the full year salary the first year.
Right.
The number of hours you're anticipating increasing this year, have they been started already, or is it something that maybe we can prorate to just get a little bit more savings? Because what I'm looking at is we have 3 departments which basically are in your situation where after 2010, when a lot of budgets were cut severely, they're all trying to work their way back to where they were at that 2010 level. So police were looking to add potentially 4 officers. DPW is down 2 people, and then you wanted to increase your hours. And when you look at the impact on this year's budget, it's doable. I asked Alan to project out now what the full year cost next year are going to be. And for the police, the DPW, and for what the library is requesting, we're looking at $177,000 next year. That's almost our full tax levy increase next year. And we haven't gotten any other increases. So what I'm afraid of, and this goes to the other department that's going budget-wide, is we could do this now, and if we can't know we're going to be able to pay for this next year, we're going to be in the same position we were in 2010. And not to pick on the library, but if you're going to be above your minimum funding, that's going to be a number that's going to come down in the future, because that's the number that they're going to be able to lower, whether I'm here or not, or somebody else. So that's why I'm trying to get some more savings this year. Maybe we build up more surplus going into next year, and we know we would be able to absorb these other increases next year. So is any of that possible?
You're bringing up a very valuable point there. First of all, first point, we have not put these hours into these extra hours in place yet. Okay. Secondly, sorry, what was the other points you brought up? That's the first step.
That was, and whether it was...
I understand you can...
And when would you look to do this? I said if we can prorate a little bit this year so we could bring the current budget number down a little bit, I think any little bit would help.
We haven't increased anyone's hours
Okay.
because we're just being careful.
Okay.
Secondly, we're not looking to get back all of the funding that we lost. We know that that's not possible. And when I talk to the board about our strategic plan, we talk a lot about what comes in the realm of possibility here. Okay? So adding full-time positions, that's not possible. Okay? So we decided that I have a very realistic board. They understand the restrictions, 2% caps. We all are familiar with that. So we're not talking about adding full-time positions.
Yes, I understand.
In the next 3 years. And I can't imagine after that, but you never know. But we're just talking about 3 years. We want to plan because organizations don't plan on failing, they just fail to plan. And so we want to be planning and to make it a good plan.
And that's what I'm trying to come to a balance where we can give you some what you want this year. But overall budget-wide, I want to make sure that when we start adding things back in, it's going to be sustainable for the future. I don't want to do it in the next year talking about, we're fortunate for 3 years, we're not even talking, furloughs are out of the question. We're not looking at layoffs, we're not looking at staff reductions. We're looking at, maintaining and restoring services. But, we can't do this full speed ahead. I think we need to be incremental. And I know your plan is that way, but I'm just looking, you're looking at, $68,000 total increase in your budget this year, 11%. That's a significant number. So I'm just looking to see if we can hold back a little bit of that later in the year so we could pick up a little more money this year.
I just had a question. So, Dara, I know you said realistically, right, you're not going to anticipate or expect to have full-time employees.
Or 2% cap.
Your plan is part-time.
Yeah, for the next 3 years.
So
yeah.
I think the other question is, what would be an acceptable amount of part-time employees within the next 3 years? Maybe you
We're not
mentioned
adding
before,
any part-time employees.
just the hours. So
Just the hours. Next year, part of the plan is to restore a position that was
Pre-2010.
That would be a 2015.
No, I'm saying prior to 2010. We mentioned those hours.
No, what we're talking about is increasing the hours of some part-time employees, and we're not adding any new positions. We're not restoring any of the lost full-time positions that were lost in 2010. Next year, we were hoping, if it's possible, we could restore a children's library assistant. But that was a position we cut. And we'd like to restore that because, again, this is something that the people of River Edge are telling us they want. We have an awful lot of young families moving into town in the last few years, and they're all getting library cards. They all want their kids to be good readers. They all want services, hours, programs. We have a large young adult population in the town as well, and they need programs and services too. So we're trying to meet all these needs in the most cost-effective way possible. But no new positions and no restoration of full-time positions that were lost in 2010. Yeah.
So I just want to point out the way that we're doing this, which is just expanding the already existing part-time. The cost for that portion of it is very minimal when you look at it's 6 hours per week.
7 for 2 reference librarians and 6 hours for 3 library assistants.
So the cost that's associated with that is fairly minimal. So if you're talking about waiting, the number of months, waiting until the summer or whatever it is that you're suggesting, that cost differential is not going to be that great. It would really move the budget.
I think the issue there, though, is nothing's in a vacuum. So if that was the only thing that we were spending on, you're 100% right, right? But,
right.
yeah.
Totally understand. But the thing also that when you're talking about saying, okay, we can afford it this year, what happens next year, if we don't want to cut down hours of these same people, but it's something that is malleable. It's not something that, because you're not hiring someone, you don't have to fire someone. You could say, okay, at this point, these are the hours that you have. There's no guarantee that those hours would extend into next year.
Further, Anthony?
Just a question, the proposed increase in the part-time hours, if that takes effect, does that increase enter the arena of benefits or below the benefit?
Well, as Alan has laid out in his spreadsheet, you have Social Security go up, and pension contributions would also go up. So it's not just your salary line.
No, but and health benefits?
No health benefits,
Okay,
because
that
they're
was
all
my question.
part-time people. In fact, we have only, if you look at the spreadsheet there, we have just 3 health benefits on our budget, because one staff member waives, every year waives her right to health benefits. So we're getting 4 full-time people, but we only pay for 3 sets of health benefits.
Aaron, do you, offhand, do you recall what your operating budget is compared to the salary budget?
Operating budget is 90,000 last year, we're asking for
And then
another
you're
10. That's everything that we need to operate except for salaries and personnel costs.
So out of the 613,000, 100 is operating?
Yeah.
513 is
Yeah,
salary?
as always, most of our costs are personnel.
Yes, Al?
Darrell, what, the increase in personnel that you want to put in play, what's the salary cost on that this year?
Okay, approximately, well, you have to do some rough calculations here. 7 hours each for reference librarians, they make about $27, $28 an hour. So times 14.
I got to do homework.
Times 14 times 52, let's say $30 an hour, times 14, times 52 hours a week. That'll be for the entire year, for the entire year. Our library assistants make 15 and 15 and $11 an hour. Times 6, well, 4. The 15 times 4 times 52.
So it's 15, 15, and 11, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 hours each.
Alan, is that the 57,000 you put in the budget?
I'm sorry, that's
That-
the total salary increase, to all salary compensation benefits, so it includes the 2% increase, it includes increase in the hours.
I was just going to tell you, just a point of interest, 2 of those people, one of them was always part-time with us, has been for many years. She was always 20 hours a week. We'd be looking to restore her to 20 hours a week. The other reference librarian, the other MLS person, was full-time until 2010. And then we reduced her to first 10 hours a week. We got her back up to 13 for the last couple of years. And our plan was to get her back up to 20 this year.
So I got a salary increase of about 35,000. Does
Yeah,
anybody,
that's about what it is.
anybody take their shoes off for that? Okay.
Again, we are getting a lot more programs which people are demanding, and we've been limping through the last 3 or 4 years. Our slice of the tax pie, if you want to call it that, has been reduced from 2.5% to 1.5%. So that to me tells me that the library has suffered disproportionately in the last several years. So if this seems like a larger increase, I think we have to put that in perspective. Also, what are you getting for that? Are you getting adequate coverage in the evenings that we are open? Right now we have 2 people scheduled with no person who can do reference help. I searched the entire Buchan system. I could only find 2 other libraries, tiny libraries, that schedule 2 people in the evening rather than 3. You're getting programs that people are demanding, and you're getting more hours of operation in one year. And so this is our plan for recovery from the hammering we've gotten in the last 3-4 years. And I think it's appropriate. I think the people of River Edge deserve it. They pay high taxes. They deserve the best service possible for those taxes.
Alan?
Vito had a comment.
I'm sorry.
Under the every little bit helps category, once we get done with the HVAC and the new roofing project, I would certainly hope that that will result in a savings in utilities and maintenance. So it's kind of hard to quantify that at this point, but I'm sure the biggest hit we take is to keep the place heated and to keep the place cooled. Well, these two capital projects will address that directly, so there are some little breathing room in there. And the other question, does the library enjoy volunteers' help? A great volunteers' help?
Well, that's part of what we do.
So-
Part of what we do is provide opportunities for volunteers. That's not something we look at as, oh, this is a way we can save money, or, this is a service we provide to the people of River Edge.
Right.
You can come here and you can improve your quality of life by volunteering with the library.
Right.
And of course, we benefit too.
Do you feel you have maxed out the volunteerism
Absolutely.
in the library?
Well, there's always room for other volunteer ideas. I like to keep an open mind, but just to give you an example. You're an immigrant, I'm an immigrant, okay? We're fortunate enough to have good command of the English language. Some people come here, fresh from Korea or China or Russia, and they don't have such good command of the English language, and they need help. We provide a service called English as a Second Language. It's entirely volunteer-driven. One of the staff members I'm talking about increasing the hours, Jennifer Kelman, is our ESL. Apart from being the Adult Services Librarian, that includes being the ESL coordinator. So she coordinates all those volunteers, tutors, matches them up with students, and we would probably have, in any given year, 20-plus volunteers that basically provide that service. That's just one example. The Friends of the Library is a volunteer organization. They raise money for the library, and we're always looking for new members for that.
That's where the programs come in.
Yeah.
The programs are funded by the Friends. And my daughter works 4 to 6 hours a week volunteering at the library.
For Alan, if I'm understanding Dara, he was saying these hours were, we just did the calculation of 35,000 over the course of a year. Since they have not done the hours yet, we already missed January and February already, right? So that would be able to be reduced out of this year's budget.
Absolutely, but I'd like to hear from the library if they could commit to a start date on these new hours, whether it be July 1st.
What I'm saying is if...
Then we could go in and prorate the budget to that particular date.
If it was 35,000, the number, Al?
Yeah, that was
Right.
roughly.
So if we did, if you just did January, March, if you even did an April 1st, you're reducing this by 8,700, which to me would be a good help this year. You went to...
Maybe April 1st might be the best date to start.
that would be 8,700 if we can...
Al?
Go ahead.
The 682,000 for the total expense, does that include this 35,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're talking about the hours. That's our sticking point.
With
Because everything
not a
else, we're
sticking point,
doing a
I'm
lot,
saying
I think, for the library, but,
If you would commit to, at least right now, say, we'll live with an April 1, every month would be how much?
I'd have to do an exact calculation.
Yeah, but I'm just...
But if you want a rough idea, go with that number.
Is April 1, is that good or not?
and what about July and August, when the town is very quiet due to vacation, and I'm assuming...
The library's not quite in
people-
those times.
No?
The library.
That's peak time.
So what's not a peak time? There has to be a downtime. I'm just curious. So there's no way it's always 100% to the red line. That's impossible. I'm just saying, I'm curious.
And the rec
When's the
program.
last time anybody here has been into the library?
I'm
The other night?
Hello, Dara can tell you, I live there.
Some people haven't gone in. I
No,
know
but
you do.
Yeah,
But
but
it's not
everything
like
has its ebb and flow. There's
Yeah.
no way that no
Well,
entity
if it's not the
back to
kids, then there's the seniors, then there's, there's different groups circulating throughout.
There needs to be consistency of service as well. I don't know how you would
Well, no, because from a
knock down
business owner's
part-time
point of
hours
view, it
in
is a
July and August
business.
and
You can't,
restore them in September.
you
There's no
gotta be
consistency of
malleable, I'm
service.
just saying.
Well, that's why
But-
I'm suggesting that we just prorate it and start it later on.
Right.
And then basically what we're doing is we're
Saving ourselves some money.
Well, for now, but I said, but the downside, I said, and you know, I think they understand, is that if next year the budget is not as flexible, they're going to have to go back to either cutting hours again or living
How does that
with the
sit
budget.
with you guys then?
But that's true with all these departments. You know, we're going to be doing with all these, if we're going to commit to hiring police officers and DPW people, and if next year there's a problem with the budget, we're looking at potential cutting back again. So that's going to be, you know, I said, I'm trying to be a little more cautious in the approach.
Right.
And
Rather build up and cut back.
But if this is, you know, the compromise we're going to make, I mean, right now, I said, if we can say April 1, we've already take 8,000 plus or minus out, I think that's a, you know, a reasonable thing to ask.
So Darrell, you feel you could work with April 1?
Yeah.
So why don't we have a motion to reduce, a motion to set the start date for April 1st and adjust the budget?
Well, excuse me,
April.
the library board makes those decisions. This board decides on the amount of funding that they receive, but all library operational decisions.
Yes, I apologize.
So basically what I'm saying is, we're guessing around $8,500 we would be reducing this year from the budget.
So what motion can we make for a number?
Al had a comment.
Alan, what do we have currently in the budget for the library? Is it the 659 or is it the 682?
682. I have the full hours that were presented in the strategic plan. So one employee may go from 684 hours up to 1,040 starting January 1st, and that's what is in this budget at this point in time.
Okay, so we're working with the 682 at the current time?
No. The 682,000 is what's in.
That's what's in the budget, that's what we have already from the total overall viewpoint?
Plus utilities and some other expenses to maintain the property.
Okay, thank you.
Dara, any chance for the Wednesday evening, any extended hours?
Well, Councilwoman, that would be the most egregious problem with our hours of operation. We reduced the number of evenings we were open every week in 2009, I think, when we first started getting hit with cuts. That Wednesday evening is a real problem, 5 o'clock closing. Very often I'm kicking 30, 40 people out at 5 o'clock. Very often their kids are 12 or younger, and the parents haven't picked them up, and so there's a whole issue with that we have to follow. 2 staff members have to wait with the youngsters while, you know, we get in touch with the parents and get them to pick up their kids. I would love to, that would be the first area I would attend to. I mean, we have people asking us for Sunday hours, we want Saturday hours in the summer, we want Wednesday evenings back, but not all of that is achievable, but I certainly think Wednesday evening would be the first place we would look at increasing hours, because that would be first on the agenda, I think.
All right. Anything else?
So
Can we make a motion for...
reduce that line item by $8,500. That'd be my motion.
Well, based on
the calculated, yes. But I think it's going to be, 800 is less than what it's going to cost. So
Second.
I think it's conservative.
Did you make a motion?
Yes, I mean...
Okay, I second.
Motion and a second to reduce the line item by $8,500. Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Thank you for all your hard work, Darren, with the library board, for all their volunteers and their advice.
I have a great board, and thank you for appointing Ms. Cattrick here.
Thank you. See you Monday.
You guys keep me honest, you know?
Darrell, you and I will meet and review everything before we put it to bed, so you're comfortable with it.
Surplus, it doesn't go.
Mayor, at this point, if I could just run you through the handout from page 1. So you understand our position. There's some new schedules in here that have been updated. And we can focus on...
All right, page 1.
Okay. Page 1 is the start of the log, and this is just from day 1, so you can pass page 1, 2,
and go to 3, as you can see, we made, well, now 92 changes to the budget. We'll put this change on the log. The last couple of changes have to do with the recalculation of our levy cap, so item numbers 90 and 91 result in a reallocation of a portion of the group health insurance from outside of the appropriation cap to inside the cap due to the change in the adjustments we made to that particular line. So not too much of a major impact there that we would have to deal with. Going to page 6, which is the end of our position summary of all the different accounts. Looking at the down totals, the overall budget is up $298,697.14. This is down at the bottom of page 6. The percentage increase is 2.06%. As you can see, we have a small increase in the salary and wages, $29,925. That will be adjusted based on what happened today, about a 0.5% increase net. And most of the increase is in the other expense category. No new changes on page 7, which is the new projection, although many of you probably read in the newspaper the other day that our state aid will remain the same. So if you're looking on this form, you'll see I have in brackets some of those state numbers. The energy receipts tax will remain at $1,043,737. The Consolidated Municipal Property Tax Relief Act, $13,256. Uniform Fire Safety, $8,000, and the Garden State Preservation Trust at $13,000. So I expect all of those to remain the same based on the information we received the other day from the state. So that's good news that we won't suffer a reduction here. Page 8 is our cap calculation, and this is at the 5% level. What you are looking at is the actual column. You'll see the number in bracket, $35,015.96. Based on the 5% increase in the cap, we would be over the cap by $35,000. That would be modified as you come down the column by the amount of additional construction we had, bringing it down to $8,846. And if you applied some of our banking numbers, we would certainly meet the cap law and have some banking left over. Not a significant amount, though. Page 9 goes to the cap calculation at the 3.5% level. And here, at the 3.5% level, you're at $273,189.25 under the cap. So the appropriation cap is not an issue for the municipality this year. Page 10 is the levy cap calculation. Looking down at the bottom of the page, the maximum amount allowable by the state is the $12,038,302. Now, that's our last year's levy plus 2% plus all the exclusions that were allowed. We're allowed exclusions for the debt increases, our deferred charges, future taxation unfunded, and the emergencies, the majority of which are the snow emergencies. It's in that, it's buried in that $140,000 number. So you're under the levy cap with that $11,715,965 levy by about $322,000 at this point. Page 11 is the tax rate information. Again, at this point, not updated for the schools, but I understand they're progressing. And as a matter of fact, I think the school presentation was rescheduled to March 8th at 9 a.m. So we'll send out a reminder to everybody, but that will be their date for presentation of the budget. But we did change the assumed collection rate down at the bottom for this RUT calculation to the 98.90%, which reduced the amount of the RUT that we had in the budget by about $46,000. So that change has been made. Page 12 is the homeowner impact. Right now, given all of this, the typical home at 381 $1,202 is at an $83 increase. Page 13 and 14 is the capital list as it stands today. We can get into that in detail later. I do have a review of the capital ordinances that are on the books. Page 15 we've looked at, that's the third of the mill. Page 16 is a recap of the impact of all capital items on the municipal budget. It's a historical look going back to 1970. It combines debt service payments and fully funded items and short-term borrowing. So our 2014 row currently stands at $1,702,820. You'll see the capital improvement fund amount of $137,127. Bond principal, bond interest, New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust loan, and the deferred charge unfunded is in there as well. And that's where we stand with the consolidated look at all capital and debt-related items in the budget. Page 17 is the collection history. We've updated that down at the bottom of the page. In 2013, we collected 98.97%. We're using in our RUT calculation 98.90%. You're not allowed to exceed what you collected in the prior year, but you can go lower. If you go lower than what you collected, that additional or excess money goes to surplus. And as you can see, it's been very tight going back 10 or 15 years in terms of pushing this close to where we collected, which means you're not generating surplus back. But you are lowering the taxes for that particular year. Page 18, this is the tax pie that I do, and I've been keeping this schedule for many, many years. Down at the bottom, you'll see 2013, and you have the percentage of the amount of tax levy. This comes directly from the county, what they call the apportionment of taxes, which is struck by the County Board of Taxation. So I just take the amount of levies that are raised by each one of these entities, the municipal, including municipal open space, the county, including their open space. The schools are combined, both local and regional, and I have a percentage for each one and the total amount of the total levy that we are raising. You can see 2013. Our share of the pie was 26.94%, the county 8.4%, the schools 64.66%, for a total levy of $44,918,000. Page 19 is a historical look at our assessments. Not much growth of late. We have the revaluations plugged in here and reassessments. So the 2014 number just shows a small amount of growth, but nothing significant over the last years. And then page 20, the legal sheet, is the fund balance and surplus schedule. Not much new to report here because we've just plugged in the $425,000, but this has at least your 2013 numbers if you need to refer to them at any point. Mayor, that's a look at this information.
Just had a couple, I don't know if now is to ask about it.
Sure.
So, yesterday in the paper, there was Bergen County freeholders had just found $75.4 million in trust accounts. And I know last year you had given us the figures for the trust accounts. Do you have that available, or is that something?
Yeah, it's been distributed to you. It's sheet 6A in the annual financial statement.
Okay.
And that has a detailed list of all of the different trust accounts and their balances.
Because they also mentioned that there's $38.2 million in this trust account for open space fund.
Well, what typically happens, and this I've heard this around the state for some other towns, is many towns have had a referendum for open space,
where the only thing that's in it is the acquisition of land for
For the
conservation or open space.
Preservation for historic.
Preservation, right, but they don't include maintenance or some of the other functions in their referendum. So they do collect, whatever the percentage is for that open space, but they don't buy land every year.
But we have, like, say, the Steuben House, which could be, something could be done for preservation of
Well,
that.
no, I'm trying to explain
Oh.
why the county has a lot of money
Okay.
in there, or why other
Okay.
towns have a lot of money sitting in their open space
Okay.
account. Because they don't go out and buy land every year, so they accumulate, a lot of money in their open space account. Unlike River Edge, where we've always taken a portion of it and put it towards the maintenance of the properties that we have in hand. So we spend, our open space money.
Okay.
Okay. And keep in mind, too, that, when the freeholders go and look at that $75 million in the trust accounts, it's in the trust account because it's dedicated to the purpose for which it was created.
Mhm.
So they'll have to deal with, the legality of, if they're not going to use it for what's in that trust account balance, that will probably have to be returned somehow to those that donated it.
Mhm.
And, your trust account will have things for shade tree beautification, the 9/11
Right.
memorial, and any of the other categories that we've dedicated by resolution through the governing body and gotten approval by the state.
Okay, because I had another question. I had contacted the chief about the forfeiture
Mhm.
account, and we do have that car that he said he finally got the title to, that we will be selling in the spring. So that money, I asked him what happens with it. He said it comes back to he can request it, and it will offset things in the police department's budget that they would need.
He can request it. What they'll give us, no one knows until they actually write the check.
So let's say if you sell something for $50,000, is that something that he could request to come back? They wouldn't
He
give you
can
the full
request
amount?
anything that is in his mind, but what the prosecutor will give us back, I'm not sure how that process works.
It's not even?
I can't commit to that. I don't have that either.
It is even. The money is in the account. If we're owed $50,000, it's in their account.
Uh-huh.
Whether they determine it to be a reimbursable expense or not is where they have their discretion.
Uh-huh.
So we would have, if we give them $50,000,
Uh-huh.
we're owed $50,000, but they may say, well, I want to buy the Tough Book, and they'll say, well, that's not really an eligible expense. It's supposed to be for, like, there's certain categories where the money's supposed to come back, but it's not as, it's not as flexible as it should be, but it's not as strict either. So, I mean, you may not get dollar for dollar back in any given year. That's the
Because it said the prosecutor has $7 million in the trust account
Yeah.
for forfeiture. So if we have things there that should be coming back, that we should get
But
reimbursed.
it would be things for, I think, for DARE or for public, there's certain categories where they can get the reimbursement back.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know how it works with who's getting the money from those accounts, if they're in an interest-bearing account, and does the county get that money? I don't know how all that works,
Mhm.
but, by rights, we should probably get it, we should be able to manage it, and
That's what
if they need to dedicate it to police business, then we dedicate it to police, but,
Right.
I don't know why the county needs to be the middleman in that, but that's not something we're gonna be able to solve. but-
I have a general understanding that when there is a prosecution where the county institutes a forfeiture proceeding, the municipality that the, alleged crime occurred in is a stakeholder in the forfeiture, and the forfeiture is prosecuted by the prosecutor's office, and if the forfeiture is successful, then the money gets split, it gets divided. Some of the money goes to the prosecutor's office, and some of the money goes to the municipality where the alleged crime occurred.
Do you know the split? Is it 10/90?
No, I think it's more like 50/50, the split.
Hmm.
Anyway, the prosecutor's office doesn't hold the money.
Mhm.
It sends the money to the local police department. The police department has to, the police department has to spend that money for law enforcement purposes. It can't go into the general budget.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he was saying for other things outside that are necessary, that's not included in the budget.
Right.
But my understanding was that there's a pile of money over there
That's the prosecutor's money.
Right, the prosecutor from the forfeiture of different towns, from the sales of the assets. It goes in, you have to request the money, and they can decide to say, no,
No, that's not the way it works. The prosecutor gets to keep a portion of the money because they're the ones who do the forfeiture.
Okay.
And their portion is, they could use that money for any county law enforcement purpose they want to. They could use it to train officers in using tasers. They could use it for, buying undercover vehicles. They could use it for, building a new jail, anything they want to.
So do we have an amount of forfeiture money that has come back to us?
No, the only amount that's currently available is from this one vehicle.
We have nothing else?
It's not like we're doing drug busts every other week in town here.
I think
But
that's something...
there is some money there. I don't remember, I haven't talked to Chief for a while, but we did have some, it wasn't, like the mayor said, it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No, but I mean...
there's some towns that have millions of dollars, but...
And even that money,
But whatever's there, I'd like it
We
to
should-
come
yes.
back.
that's how they decide.
You're looking
But
at...
they do have to determine whether it's eligible, but that's where I've heard there's been issues, what they determine what's eligible and not. Even, it could be law enforcement, but it can't be anything.
And also, the stuff that's auctioned, how did that get put back into the budget?
That money goes into what we call a reserve for sale of asset. And then we anticipate a revenue in our budget. We have a revenue of $5,000 that we're going to bring that money back into the budget to offset taxes. So that's how we've handled it over the years.
So we set the number at 5,000, that's it?
Yeah, because the council in the past has felt that's a sustainable number going forward for several years.
Because
So-
we did sell that tree truck, I think we got more than that.
Yeah, so, you could look at that reserve and plug it all in for 1 year. It's very short-sighted, in my opinion, because what you should do is look to the future, at least the short-term future, and just say...
I'm not saying to change it, I'm just curious that's what the
No,
actual
I'm just
number
trying to
is.
explain the logic for having that $5,000 number in there, that it's we feel it's sustainable from selling assets from 1 year to the next, and then we can commit to that going forward,
But do we have anywhere in these papers, like what the actual number is every year?
The actual number of...
From the auctions, what we get to see back?
Not in the papers in front of you. That's a general ledger number or a trial balance number. So what you have is an opening balance and an ending balance on that particular reserve. So you can look at our balance sheet from 1 year to the next, balance sheet 2012, balance sheet 2013.
So there's no separate line item?
Not that you do have the balance sheets from each year. That's in the annual financial statement, the audit reports. So that does show, you could calculate the increase in that amount. But you don't have a number that shows you a schedule,
So it would be up to you to make that calculation?
I could tell you in
No,
5 minutes if you need to know that.
What is that line called?
Reserve for sale of assets. So we set it aside, we set that money aside so that we can then bring it back into the budget and offset taxes.
Okay.
With whatever we sell. Now, if you sold a piece of land for several $100,000, that might be a different decision process. But selling, some of the vehicles and the equipment, this is kind of the sustainable track we're in. But certainly, if you had a larger piece of property that you were going to sell, that would warrant a different consideration.
All right.
Just have one other question too. Ed, sorry. Last week you had put in different numbers for revenue projections.
Yep.
Do we have the changes on here?
Yes, you do. It's on page 7. And you also have it as part of the log. So 7 is where we incorporated these changes. For those of you that prefer to look at the log, I can direct you to that. That's on page 2. You'll see item numbers 72, 73, 74, and 75 is a rut. So there were 3 revenue changes on the log. Line number 72, surplus revenue went from 400 to 425. 73, police outside duty revenue, 15,000 to 30,000. Delinquent tax revenue, 30,000 to 225,000.
So, the police outside duty revenue, I believe that they said last year was an unusually high number, that we got paid for that?
Excuse me?
The police outside duty revenue?
Yes.
And, I believe we were told that last year it was unusually high, that amount? Would that be correct?
Yes, last year was unusually high. You can see we realized $87,968.
Yeah, before we had a high one too, because of the PSE&G project. So there's 2 years where it was unreasonably high, or unexpectedly high, I should say.
So is it reasonable to think that it would go up again, 15,000?
Well, it's still anticipated to be 30, not 87. We plugged in 15,000 was the original number.
Oh,
We're going to make
okay.
more than 15, so we went from 15 to 30, which is more of a historical kind of number. All the revenue, at least as far as I'm looking at, the revenues have to be conservative. We said that all along. You can't overestimate it. And you're not allowed to overestimate your revenues. You're allowed to use whatever you realize, but if it's not going to be repeated, obviously, we don't want to use those numbers.
Right.
Unless we know it's something, that's particularly with the police outside duty, the thing with, even with the building permits, we had a great year because of the Huffman coups. We're not going to see that again necessarily this year, so that's why we still try to be pretty conservative on our estimates on the revenue side.
Well, you know, Huffman Coups is not, it's nowhere near completed yet.
I'm talking just for the fees, not for the building fees.
Oh, yeah, no, building fees, we're not gonna get any
No,
from
the revenue, we'll get the revenues from the taxes. I'm talking about.
I'm talking about police outside duty for directing traffic and
Yes.
things like that.
Yeah, there'll be more of that, yeah.
Is that where the $87,000 number came from?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we realized last year.
And there's a lot of sewer work also for a few months with the county.
Yeah.
I tend to come out for quite a few months.
It's not something you can easily predict. I mean, I have numbers going back several years. Even this is probably, if you compared it to some average years, probably 30,000 will be, hopefully it'll be right on, but, you know, it could be under, you know, based on past experience. We've had some very good years. When they repaved Kinnicknack Road, you know, that was a very good year.
And
But it's based on, you know, outside contractors requesting our services, you know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The number that's put in here is the gross number, and the police compensation comes out of overtime?
No, this is the amount above and beyond overtime.
This is what's realized?
Right. We take the police outside due money, it goes into a trust account, and then we draw from the trust account to offset the overtime that's been paid through our municipal budget, and then the administrative cost goes back into the budget as a revenue item.
Okay, so this is the net number for that.
This is the net number, right. Yeah, the gross goes into the trust account.
And also, like the snow fund, have we adjusted that, or?
We have money in the snow fund. I've been building that over the years for this reason. We got to the point, going back many years, the superintendent of public works would recommend a snow removal budget, overtime, fuel, salt, for the entire year, which included, you know, the months we're in now and November, December. And the council got to the point where the budgets were so tight, when the law allowed, we built this snow fund to offset any increases in snow removal costs at the end of the year, November and December. So our superintendents have really not put together snow budgets for the entire year, but just for the first part of the year. So what you see in their request is this time of the year. We anticipate that if we go through that money, and we have a need in November and December, that we can go into the trust fund and then take care of business out of that trust fund. The law says that you have to expend all of your snow removal money before you can go into that snow fund. So we had about $30,000 going back several years, and then I added another 19 last year. If you remember, last year we virtually had no snow removal costs. So we had that money available, and we moved that over into the snow account. So we do have that money sitting there, but in my mind, that's to take care of things should we get hit with storms in December of this year.
And, we're absorbing these snow increases, these snowstorms this year.
Does the county reimburse us for plowing the county roads?
Yes, they do. Right now, we have a revenue and an appropriation in the account of, in the budget of $3,400, but that will change. I saw another billing that DPW did for $6,000. So as those bills go out, as we collect that revenue, we'll increase the appropriation side, we'll increase the revenue side, and that'll be throughout our process. Even if the budget is introduced, we'll amend it as we get those amounts in to offset those costs.
Well, we have here on page 7, it says Bergen County Snow Plowing Interlocal, and that number is $51.60. Is that what we were paid?
That was last year, I believe. Let me just get to the line here. Yeah, that was last year, 2013 budget.
Seems like a small amount of money to be paid for that.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of, plowing the year before. This year, the bills, will probably exceed that by the time we get done with all of the billing and collection of the fees.
And also, the FEMA money, where does that go, that we got reimbursed?
FEMA money goes into what they call miscellaneous revenues not anticipated. It's a balance sheet account. What you're looking at on this page 7 are miscellaneous revenues anticipated. So these are revenues that are anticipated in the municipal budget. That money goes into this account called not anticipated. And then that flows to an operations account at the end of the year, which takes into account all excesses of revenue or leftover budgets. And then that eventually flows to what we call a fund balance. In this case, it's our current operating fund balance. And then you get to draw on that fund balance as a revenue item called surplus, which you see on page 7. So that FEMA money is coming back to you through those accounting techniques into your revenue budget as a surplus item.
Alan, to get back to that Bergen County snow plowing line, if in 2013 we received $51.60 and we didn't have a lot of snow, why are we anticipating $3,400 this year when we've been daily losing snow?
Very good question. The state of New Jersey does a lot of what they call cash basis accounting, and they are very conservative and strict in terms of what they allow you to include in your budget as a revenue item. So in this instance, we've included $3,400 based on the billings that we've seen and the amount of money that we've actually received from the county. Everything that you see here has to be documented and certified by me that it's a valid revenue source and that it's reasonable and appropriate to include in the budget and is within all the laws and regulations. So as we have additional billings, and we have, I explained, I just saw another one for $6,000. It's a bill. I have to see what the county will pay off of that bill. But I will amend the budget to include additional revenue in here. But by the same token, I will include an increase on the appropriation side to take care of the overtime that John spent on the county roads. So it won't help your property taxes to be raised, but it will offset some of the additional plowing costs as we move along.
When we submit a bill to the county, do they pay us what we submit, or is there some kind of like, well, we want to give you this much?
Generally, I would say, 95% of the time, they're accepting of what is billed out by the Department of Public Works. There have been occasions, I guess, where there's been some exceptions, made. So, I can't commit to say it's 100% whatever we bill we get, but it's been very good, very reasonable.
Mike?
I didn't realize that the county was reimbursing the expenses associated with the road Kinnickmack, but couldn't that expense of clearing the bus stops be passed along to the county?
That's not...
No, because that's a good question, but the county only takes responsibility from the curbs in.
That's transit.
They won't take a responsibility, they don't even take responsibility for the curb, for the curbing. If we want the county to repave Kinderkamak Road. They won't do new curbs. They'll only do new asphalt. So.
Curb is more expensive.
They won't do this.
Asphalt.
That's what the money is.
She makes fun of how it's instead of asphalt.
No,
I think
because
asphalt,
when you
which
do
is
the
a zombie
permit,
about
you
what
comply
you
to county details.
I need
which
my
are a lot
asphalt.
more stringent.
So Alan, you were going to, from last week, go through this capital and let us know what the balances were?
Yes, you have a second, Mayor, if we could turn to that. You have a legal-sized piece of paper stapled to an 8.5 by 11 document behind it. And I'd like to just take you through that a little bit and explain what that is. The short document behind the legal-sized page, which you'll see, says Capital Authorization Report. This is a listing of our active capital ordinances, and we refer to those ordinances with a 4-digit number, and you'll see in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see that account number 04-2150-55-1379. 1379 is the ordinance number, and that ordinance is broken down into several accounts. This is an old ordinance, and you'll see it's other expenses, ladder truck, boiler, DPW mowers. You know, we don't have the ability to put a full description here. We just put enough to try and indicate what those lines are. And then you have the budget amount, which is the amount of the authorization. And then following along, there's a paid or charged, encumbered amount, indicating that there's some sort of a commitment payable or an accounts payable, if you'd like to think of it that way. There's a cash unexpended balance and a balance column. The unexpended includes the encumbered amount as well as anything that's available to be spent. The balance is a number that shows how much is available after you take out the accounts payable. So if you look at the first ordinance below that, 1380, just as an example, you'll see a couple of my pencil notes. This is from the year 2002. I put a short description there that sanitary sewer is the Hackensack Avenue. The S is the source of the funding, which is capital surplus. And then under encumbered, you'll see there's a $15,600 encumbrance or an accounts payable to Costa Engineering for the Hackensack Avenue sewer extension. So that amount of money appears in the unexpended column, meaning that it's available, we have a commitment on it, and there are no additional funds available net. You'll see the zero right next to it, so there are no additional funds available. And we always look at the bottom line there, which you'll see with those two bold lines give you the bottom line. You'll see some numbers negatives, others positive. That's okay as long as the bottom line doesn't overexpend those numbers. So for all the ordinances that we have listed on the cover page, you have this type of analysis in our report. These are the most current information that we have at this point in time. And we can go and look at each particular ordinance, and you can see some of the line items in that particular ordinance. So if you go back to the legal size paper, this is a summary of what you're looking at to give you the answer to the question of how much is available. We have the ordinance on the left-hand side, the ordinance number. We have a short description according to the bond ordinance title. So many of these are complex, what we call complex ordinances, because they have a lot of projects and acquisitions of equipment in there. And you'll see where it says various, you know, that's just to describe it. There's a lot of projects in that particular ordinance. And then we have it broken down by the source of funding, which we don't need to go into too much. If it resides in a capital improvement fund line, the money has to go back to that particular line. If it resides in capital surplus, it goes back to capital surplus. A deferred charge is an amount of money where we haven't raised the cash yet for that particular item. We have amounts that might be due from the county, nothing there. DOT is Department of Transportation. Those are grants. GA was Green Acres. If you remember, we had some Green Acres funding a couple of years ago. And then I gave you a total unexpended and a total balance, which does tie to the document behind it. Then I went through each ordinance and looked at them, and based on what I saw, I put them into the column cancel which means you could cancel it, and you could reuse that money. So here you'll see on the very first line that $15,600. I put it in the cancel balance line, and my comment is, if you decide not to do Hackensack Avenue, if you terminate that project, then yes, we would liquidate that contract with Costa Engineering for that work, and we would put that money, we would cancel that money, and then it would be available to use for a future project, subject to the limitations of the state. So the do not cancel column is a column where I'm recommending you don't cancel that money, and I've given you a small reason as to why. For instance, that $470, we have two purposes in that ordinance when you take a look at it. I have a need, Rogut is our bond counsel, so I would have a need to still provide some funding for legal expenses in the capital area this year, and I would recommend we leave that open so I could use that to pay those legal expenses when and if they're occurred. And also in that particular ordinance, we have brackets for the beautification committee for their pennants that are out on Kinnecmack Road. So we had put some funding to buy the actual hardware for those pennants, and that still exists in that particular line. So I'm saying don't cancel the unexpended amount, don't cancel the balance amount. That's why you don't see anything in the cancel line. So with that, Mayor, we can go line by line. The bottom line total is, now let me just finish up my recommendation. The bottom line total here under cancel is $631,000. Of that, what I'm recommending is $30,000 be returned to our capital surplus to show good faith to our rating agencies that we are trying to rebuild our fund balance in our different accounts, and that's why we're deserving of a stable AA rating by Standard & Poor's. Number two, I would recommend that $60,000 of that $631,000 be canceled by the mayor and council and reappropriated for a sewer emergency that we heard about on Wednesday of this week at Wayne and the Fenway. It's a significantly deep sewer emergency. We have a cooperative bid, a contract for an emergency contract service. It could run $50,000 to $60,000, so I'd like to see you reappropriate $60,000 for that expense to take care of that sewer break. And then you've already talked about, third line down, $93,057.79, that be reappropriated to the library roof. So with those three recommendations, Mayor, I'll turn it over back to the group or answer any questions.
I have a suggestion.
Ed?
Alan, we talked a little bit before the meeting. I asked Alan, everything that's under the capital improvement fund, you had said the individual items that are too small to bond, totaling $33,296. We could use that money from the capital, correct?
Could you repeat that again? I was trying to get the
individual purchases that are too small to bond, that we usually fund outright in the capital improvement fund, totaling the $33,296. 286. Right. We can pay for all those out of that.
Out of capital surplus, yes.
Okay. I would my recommendation would be we do that. The other thing I would look at is taking the ADA ramp money that we're going to get reimbursed in the county, pull that out of our budget and stick it here. I keep that $15,000 in the budget for whatever, if we're going to need money for DPW overtime or whatever. What I'm saying is, if we take the $33,000 out, the $8,000 from the library, that brings us to a tax increase of about $72. We're still going to maintain more than half the money in this capital account, and we can allocate it as we go along. We can keep all the funding that we have in our capital account here, not have to cut anything there, and we'll have the money set aside so we can pull from that as the projects become available.
It seems like some of these, they're old on this capital ordinances, and they tend to be forgotten about.
What I'm saying is that, well, the money will be there, but suppose we come up with...
I agree with you,
so I'm saying that way, so we don't have to...
We should always keep this kind of present.
Yes, I think because we don't have to go bonding.
2002, we're looking at, we've been paying money on this for all these years and getting nothing for it, so...
Alan?
There, with all due respect to this council, I've been going through this process of councils looking at ordinances to cancel, going back maybe 10 or 15 years. I have files filled upstairs in the attic with a folder on every year that we've looked at cancellation of it. Now, last year, I don't know that we did this with the full council, but we did it
We
in
did,
Finance
yes, we did.
Committee in 2013.
And we did take money out of Hackensack Avenue. That's always been the one we've been pulling from. We took
Yeah.
money for the light at Grand for that. We took the pedestrian timers from that. So that, we did take money from...
The only restriction is you can't use this capital surplus money for down payment money. So are you suggesting
I'm
that
saying
the
that we
whole
pay-
$304,900 is
Yes,
funded this way?
and if they do that,
That
if we do that project, then we pay for it. I don't, you know, we're encumbering ourselves, you know, $15,000 in the budget for something we're going to be reimbursed for, and we're on the county's timeline. So I'm saying if we hold that out, and we could pay for that when it comes in, and they'll reimburse us, then it's no harm, no foul, and there's no impact on the budget.
And that
Because
money
that's-
would come back to capital surplus, and you could use it.
And then we can use it,
in the future, yeah.
reappropriate it. And then, and we take the $33,000 out of the capital improvement fund, that directly comes out of the budget. I said I leave that $15,000 for the down payment number anyway.
Well, that would,
and-
if you did the whole $304,900
Mhm.
as an ordinance to fund this, that 15 would come out.
No, but I'm saying, but I may want to keep that in it, if you're, because we're expecting this big snowstorm. I don't want you to, after we introduce the budget, to come back
Yeah.
and say, well, now we have to add $20,000 back now to cover the
We're
emergency
going to do that for
storm.
Monday.
So,
especially if
well,
it's
that's what I'm saying. So I said,
emergency.
we're better off putting, we could take that,
Have it in
keep that
there already.
15,000 in
No,
now.
I don't know what that
And,
will be.
you know, if we got to find 5,000 somewhere else to make difference, I'm sure we can
Not a
find
big deal.
$5,000
All right, so
difference.
you leave it in here.
Have it on
temporary.
deck.
That's what I'm
Be able to
saying.
help.
Could I just go through a few of the things that are on
Sure.
here?
Do we need a motion for
Well,
what you
I
said?
think, let them, let's
Okay,
discuss
we're
first.
still discussing it.
There is $484 for sewer emergency that could be put toward the sewer emergency, right?
Yeah,
That would close that out to zero.
$484.10.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are things that I normally do during the year for a few $100s. I'll clean these up, you know, and if you go back, you'll see every year we go through a process of, because this is due diligence on the part of your chief financial officer to keep the records current. And you can go back through my audit reports. I don't think you'll ever see a recommendation that these ordinances be canceled, because I've done that on the small accounts. But on the large ones, certainly the mayor and council need to make a decision as to whether a project is moving forward or not, and then to, you know, to cancel those significant amounts.
On some
Other
of these,
questions?
here, we have $166,000 for fifth resurfacing, still open. So is that the current one, or is this an old one?
That's the current ordinance, 1794. It's the last ordinance you did. We're anticipating receiving about $150,000 from the
Right.
Department of Transportation for that work.
And then the entrance signs, computer for PD, that was put into his budget. Is this with the inclusion of that, or is that an old one? The
Well-
$75,006?
Yeah, that's ordinance, let me just see what ordinance that was.
Because he did put in for computer.
1784 was adopted in 2013.
Okay.
And you're correct, we have not gotten to replacing all of the entrance signs at this point. And there is money in there for, there was money in there for computers. And I
He
think
has
some of that
another-
money is still open.
That's in the do not cancel column.
Right.
Right, but he has another request for computers again this year, so...
But that request from 2013 was for various departments. It does say police department equipment, because that was also part of this ordinance, but the computer line, I think we had building department, we had finance department, we had, you know, several departments, as well as the police department. We'd have to go back to that ordinance and spend time analyzing the exact list, which I have, you know, can be done.
The $16,070, where it says DPW grounds and fire hydrant flags,
Yes.
I know there was a request for the fire hydrant flags this year. Is this including of that?
Yes, that's going to pay about $4,000 of that for the fire hydrant flags.
That's it for me. Oh, I just had one other question. On this 470 that says leave for ROGA and beautification brackets, it's such an odd combination to have the two things like that put together. Why was that done, like beautification and road gut?
Yeah, because if you go to ordinance 1567 in the document behind you, you can find it. I can tell you what page it's on in a minute. It's on page 8 of that short report. And you'll see there's $1,640.32 available for the brackets for the beautification committee. And then I think there's like another $100 available for ROGA. So there's a little bit more available in the balance column.
So why is that combined, though? That's my question.
Well, those are the only two things that are left to be spent out of that ordinance.
Okay.
So those are the two only things that I consider to be active. Everything else is done in that ordinance. You know, if you want to cancel the beautification brackets, then, you know, we would liquidate that purchase order after notification to them. $1,640.32 would also become available to you. Now, periodically, what I do is I write to the departments and ask them about these old accounts payables that are on the books every year. I don't get to every particular one, but we do a good review, and we get to the departments to find out whether these are active or not, and if they're not, then we get them off the books and get the money back into the available column.
So the big one is the Hackensack Avenue. We're deciding to do $304,000 out of that one?
Well, there's no decision yet.
No.
We're only
Well, we're
discussing it.
I'm just saying, because the 304 is coming back to us. What I'm saying is, right
Right.
now, we have to put it in an account for down payment. If we're getting reimbursed for it, we might as well just keep that money outside the budget, and then we can reallocate it however we want, you know, depending on all the other projects we funded through the budget. We'll have other money available to do other projects and pay for them directly instead of having to bond for them.
But what you're saying, Ed, if I understand you correctly, there's two parts, two recommendations. One is to take $33,286, which is in our operating budget this year.
Yes.
And to remove that to lower the tax increase.
And we'll pay for those...
And pay for them from our capital surplus.
Correct.
Right? That's the first part of it.
Correct.
And then the second part of it is to take the county ADA project, which is $304,000, and fund the entire thing from surplus?
Yes, and then we get reimbursed directly without having to without putting it in the budget. You get the money back. If they don't do the project, then we don't pay the money. If not, we're putting $15,000 in the budget for nothing.
I know, but that's $304,000 that we can't use for another project that would take precedence over it, such as a community center.
You know, you could use it if the project, the county project go forward. We're not paying for it. It's just the money's there if we're going to do it. You don't have to bond for it. And
But then
keep the
do you
$15,000.
restrict, like once you kind of earmark it for that, and it doesn't happen, or you don't get that money back, is it restricted then in its use?
No, we can do whatever we want.
Then you have to do another ordinance and reallocate it again.
Well, Mayor?
Yeah.
I would remind you, if you look at page 13 in your short report, this is the capital list we're dealing with currently.
Page 13 of the capital?
No, the report that started with page 1.
Okay.
You'll see in the first column the grand total CIF down payment. That's the $33,286 Councilman Mignon is talking about.
Yes.
And he's talking about taking the $304,000, but there is under the community center line a down payment of $7,500, which will get you an authorization of $150,000. So even with the recommendations that he's making, this will still allow for another $150,000 to be raised or authorized for the community center.
And there's still money would be left in the capital surplus, even if we use the $300,000. It's going to come back to us, so that money's still going to be there in the capital surplus.
How long does it take them to pay us?
Well, we haven't done the project yet.
No, I know, but once it's done...
What, that county AD thing is going to take a decade?
No, it's going to take a while.
A decade.
So, Mayor, you had mentioned, though, like, that we would have to pass an ordinance or, what was it that you said just before? That seemed like that you were not,
Make a new ordinance and then,
I think it's, I think the first half of Ed's recommendation for the $33,000, which is right in our budget and can have an effect on local property taxes immediately, that's worthwhile thing to do.
but the second part, you had an aversion to it
The
because...
second part, only because it ties our hands if we want to get moving on the community center.
And then you
We'll have less money available.
And then you mentioned...
We have some money available, but not enough to do it.
And then you said that because we would have to pass an ordinance or something like that, or bring it up again?
Yeah.
So what's the big deal if we were to... So we have to do that?
The big deal is that you don't know what the makeup of the council is going to be when that day comes, and it could get reallocated for something else, and I think we're pretty much, I think there's a consensus that the public wants a community center. And if we can fund it from existing capital without raising any additional taxes, because we already have the money, then we should concentrate on that.
And then, well, I'm sorry, but if we did the second step, like Ed is advising, but Al, you said that we would still have that money, the 100 and something, so it's not a zero-sum game that we have to, there's not going to be anything.
Look, it doesn't matter. We can proceed with a community center. That's not getting built this year. The county project will happen this year, and we'll get refunded. It's basically just saying we're taking money that we're going to, instead of having to say we're paying for a project we're going to reimburse for, we're just going to take money out of our capital surplus, pay for it, and then it gets plugged right back in. That $300,000 will be back there, and you can spend it whatever you want to spend it on. It's basically, it's a placeholder, except we don't have to pay $15,000 out of our budget this year for a down payment on
now they're saying
something.
it's going to take a long time for that to get done.
No, it'll be done this year.
Not to get done.
Once Costa designs it, that project's going to be done in a matter of 3 or 4 months once it's done.
But isn't that true, Al? We're going to have that you mentioned something about 100-something thousand that even if we did...
It's right here.
Right, so we're still going to have that.
And there's 150 from last year.
If we remove the $33,000 from our operating budget, what would that reduce the average taxes from $82 to what?
Wasn't it 74 that you said?
72.
72.
With the 33 out.
With 33 and then the 8 from the library, yes. But what's going to happen is...
$8?
I'm sorry?
Another $8, 33,000.
33 plus the 8.
Plus the 8.
Plus the 8,500, so it's 33,000.
That's 41.5.
I mean, the 33,000
So from
is equivalent to another
$83 down
$8.
to...
Yeah, so
because of
plus
the 83, right.
$8. So that brings it down to what, 75?
75, right?
$75.
We're
So
70, it's
we're already below, if we take out the 33, we're already below the tax increase.
Last year.
What I'm saying is he's going to come back Al's going to come back and say, we just have to spend $15,000 on a snow emergency, and we're going to raise it another $6. So...
Well, once I prorate the library salaries, I'm hoping that will offset some of the snow costs.
But it doesn't make any sense to his first proposal. They have to be tied together, right?
Why do they have to be tied together? They're two separate things. The first one is like a no-brainer.
Why don't we move the first one and then continue arguing about the second one?
It's a very good idea.
I think it's a very good idea. Ed, why don't you move your first one?
I'll make a motion that we remove the individual pay items on the capital improvement funds in the amount of $33,286 and take that out of the capital surplus.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Thank you.
And because it said, don't do the second one, but I'm saying, but if Alan comes back on Monday and wants us to raise taxes another $8 for a snow emergency, I'm not in favor of passing that cost along if we can pay for it out of the budget.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
So he's just not going to do it because you just warned him. So.
No, I'm going to do it.
So we're paying $15,000 for a project.
Yeah, and by the way, we bought a new fire truck, we bought a new dump truck, we're doing the roof. I mean, it's not that we're not spending, I'm just saying...
It's just it, we're
as a
funding
wider
everybody's
picture, we're not being
priorities
stingy
getting
here with the
funded,
town.
and we're
I
still
mean,
being able to maintain the taxes. That's so, it's, I don't know.
May Mayor, could you move,
And we started to discuss the community.
council consider the motion
Which took us three
to
years.
formally approve that 93,000, actually, you did that already, to reappropriate that 93,000 to the library roof. You already have a motion on that.
We did that already.
But could I get $60,000 for the sewer emergency on Wayne and the Fenway?
And
So, we have to-
60,000.
The
Second.
emergency.
All in
Yes.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
And there was something about 30,000 for surplus?
Yeah, that, I mean, if there is money left
60,
over, then I would
1.6.
just leave it in capital surplus. The rating agencies, especially Moody's, are looking for us to build our surplus back up.
Uh-huh.
They have noted that we've depleted our surplus over the years, so anything we can do, even if it's small movement in the right direction, will be a good faith effort that I could argue with the rating agencies.
Does that bring
And
us
it shouldn't, because it's us.
to reappropriate about 450,000?
So where are we, 630? And I took that one in, 481, and the 33, 206. Yeah, about 412,000, about $400,000 is left.
Okay. Well, I know what we could use $400,000 for.
A new hot box?
We already funded that.
Big old hot, bigger one.
Diamond studying on the Welcome to River Edge.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
That and my impeachment.
So there's 412 left.
Can we take a break there and get a coffee refill?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Alan,
We're doing great.
We're done.
9:30. We're done.
Just a note of thanks, that was very informative, this ordinance report, had to represent a lot of effort and hours, I can imagine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Councilman Mignon's suggestions, we brought the tax rate down to about $75. If, I'd like to find out from council, is that the tax rate we want to shoot for to introduce our budget? And if that's it, then Alan will prepare that budget for introduction. We can have further discussions on Councilman Mignon's other suggestion. After this weekend, Alan will come back to us regarding the impending storm to tell us if we can realistically meet the $75 increase.
72,
72?
if we include the 8,500 from the library, yes.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
We're looking like heroes.
8,500.
Alan?
I'm not including it at this point. I know that snow's coming.
No, I'm not
Murphy's
saying, I'm
Law,
saying,
hang on.
based on what we're doing today, it's 72, what I'm saying.
I think that's a good number.
All right.
Well,
I would
And then
make a
what I'm
motion-
saying, though, I mean, after introduction, if Alan comes back with a $20 snow emergency, I'm just gonna say, based on, after introduction, I'm still gonna come back with these kind of recommendations, because I don't think that we should be passing on those costs to the taxpayers. But once they're passed on, they're never recouped. And, you know, even the Department of Local Government Services sent out their finance notice this week, basically saying, oh, all the snow emergencies are exempt from the cap, tax away, which is great. You pay for it this year, we collect the money, and then there's nothing next year saying you have to put that money aside to return it back to the taxpayer. So I think we need, like I keep saying, live within our means. I think this budget is continues what we've been doing the last couple of years, so if we can keep it this way, I think, we'll have a good budget.
Would you like to introduce that motion?
All right, so we're shooting for a $72
Yep.
Which are
tax.
$5 less than last year. I think that brings us to about 2.4%, so we're closing in on the 2%. I think our overall budget will be at 2%. So, I think those are good budget practices, and I think when you look at where the other towns are going to wind up, we're going to look much better compared to our surrounding neighbors.
So,
Well, it's not a motion, that's,
Mike, should we make a motion to introduce the budget as that
Well-
figure?
But no, we need Alan.
we need a final budget to introduce, right?
Yeah, no, we're just going to make a motion for Alan to prepare
The budget.
The budget,
As we amend it.
reflecting a $72 average increase. Is that the motion?
That's the motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
We have a roll call vote on that, Mayor?
Roll call.
It will take a majority of the full membership to introduce the budget.
Kathleen?
Yes.
yes.
Anthony? Ellen?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you.
I almost said Kathy. She was-
he was eating a cake. I saw a chocolate a little bit.
All right,
Could have been worse because it's Tom.
if there is... If there is no further budgetary items, we were requested to discuss a policy for emergency closings in the event of snow or other natural disaster. So Alan will explain the policy now, and then we can have a discussion on it, the existing policy.
We really don't have a policy per se. We have a practice that has been in effect for many, many years, whereby when we have a snow event or some other sort of emergency, the administrator or the clerk would reach out to the mayor, explain the circumstances, and in consultation with the mayor, make a call as to whether the non-essential workers whether Borough Hall would be closed for non-essential workers. Essential workers would still have to report, would receive comp time for their services during the emergency. So whether Borough Hall would be closed, whether we would have an early dismissal based on the conditions, or whether we would have a late arrival situation. In the absence of the mayor, we would try and discuss it with the council president. In the absence of the council president, the administrator, would make the call. So that's been our practice, and that had been in place. And we have I have to commend the employees who are very dedicated to this borough and show up during all types of situations and circumstances. And it hasn't been a blanket, let's close Borough Hall because there's a snowflake. It has to be a significant amount of snow and conditions deteriorating. I would also note, for those of you that aren't aware, is that we did have a grievance with the police department during the preceding the closure of Borough Hall for Hurricane Sandy, as well as the aftermath where we had the electric outage. Now, they weren't grieving the fact that these employees were sent home or had a dismissal. They were, according to their contract, they believed they should have gotten paid a different rate of pay for their time because these employees were given an early dismissal and they stayed on. That grievance was heard by me, and I did not fine for the PBA in that instance, but they still have the right to go to arbitration should they so choose. In fact, there are other areas out there that they are grieving that are in the arbitration stage. But given that that grievance, in my mind, the policy became a little bit closer to what other municipalities do, and there are a significant amount of municipalities out there where they believe that all public employees should be at the municipal building during these emergency events, and that if someone feels that their personal safety is at risk or they have other responsibilities, that they're certainly entitled to take vacation time, a personal day if that exists in their schedule, or a floating holiday, but not sick time. So that's kind of where we're at right now. If the decision is left without the mayor's consultation, that's been my position at this point. If you can't stay, if you need to go, then you will go. So that's kind of where we're at. We have a snow event, a large predicted snow event on Monday, so I would like to just hear the mayor and council's viewpoints on this, and perhaps some sort of a decision on Monday, whether it's going to be a closure, whether it'll be a late arrival, or whether it will be some sort of an early dismissal situation if it's not going to start snowing early on.
Okay. I'm pretty much available. You can reach me by phone. I know in the last couple of years I've been called on several times in weather emergencies to either declare a local state of emergency or to agree with Alan that we should have an early dismissal or a late arrival, and, depending upon the local weather conditions and general condition of the roads. So I don't have any problem with maintaining that authority on a case-by-case basis, keeping in mind that I'm always trying to avoid additional grievances with our collective bargaining units, but I can open up with further discussion, Kathleen.
Have any other PBAs put forward this type of grievance in other boroughs when it's happened? Does anyone, do you know?
I have no knowledge of that, and I can tell you it's never happened in River Edge in all the years that, I've been here.
I'm just curious of other towns and what the outcome was. I mean, it's pretty, you have a Subaru four-wheel drive, so you can get around. But I think, for a lot of the employees, it's, really dangerous. And if the governor puts a state of emergency, wouldn't that just cover everything?
But it also impacts John Lynch also. Remember now, if borough's open, he's got to make sure the parking lots are clear. He's got to, and that's taken away manpower from other things too. Do our non-contractual islands get personal days also, or no?
No personal days, just 2 floating holidays in addition to the other holidays that are on the schedule, and vacation time.
That might be a way to ultimately go, but obviously we have to look at how it impacts the PBA, but, I don't have a problem with people getting off for snow and not forcing them to take a vacation day. I mean, that puts people in a bad position. We all know you have very limited vacation days. Sometimes, you can't use sick, obviously, but sometimes to put somebody in a position to say, I don't want to use one of my 2 days, my 10 vacation days for a snowstorm is, it's not the best way to...
Now, keep in mind that nowadays we have a large majority of hourly workers, so they just don't get paid when they don't come in. And in addition, we have a lot of part-time employees who get prorated vacation, so they don't get a lot of vacation. And I'm not saying the full-time employees get a lot of vacation. That depends, how senior they are, so they don't have a lot of vacation either.
Just to be clear, if you declare a local state of emergency and you close Borough Hall, there's no impact to the employees' time. They're not...
Full-time employees or part-time salaried employees would all get their pay.
Right.
Hourly employees who don't report for work would not get their pay.
Okay.
But there would be no docking of time of any sort.
Thank you.
So when the governor declares a state of emergency and they close down state offices, and then you have to declare another state of emergency to cover the borough?
Well, the governor declares a state of emergency a lot, especially, but that doesn't mean that, if there's a state of emergency in Cape May,
Right.
the weather conditions in North Jersey may be
What if he
maybe
declares
worse.
the entire state
But
state emergency?
That's state offices. That doesn't, if our roads are passable, if it's not snowing here, but it's snowing somewhere else in Trenton, and the governor declares a state of emergency, for state offices,
Yes.
there aren't any state offices in River Edge. There's state offices in Hackensack.
But you do have people that just don't live here to drive here. They come from other places. They might have to drive, an hour or something just to get here. So
Right.
I'm just, like the hierarchy of state of emergency, if the governor declares it, it's for the entire state. It's just not for Trenton or, you can't pick and choose.
I think there needs to be some criteria, because you don't want to, like Monday, when, do you tell people...
When do you decide?
Yeah, when do you tell people? I guess it's the same predicament the school districts have. Do you anticipate a delayed opening? Do you anticipate a late opening? Do you anticipate closing the day? I think you need more of a policy for that. I think it seems we're in general agreement that there should be a policy of sorts.
I just think this grievance has now created questions for everybody else. Because of it, now it's a matter of you don't want to...
But I think everybody understands the difference between essential and non-essential employees. People in emergency services are essential workers. I mean, I don't see the basis for that grievance, to be honest, but that's my
Right.
opinion.
And they knew what they were getting themselves into when they signed up for the job, too.
That's like,
I mean,
if they
you could be a
like the
police
DPW,
officer.
if they want extra money to come in and plow. I mean, that's when you sign on as a DPW worker, you understand that's the conditions.
If there was any way to find out if this has happened in other towns, I'd be just very curious, if another department did this.
I don't know whether any ever reached PERC. Alan could research that.
And to the mayor's point about, having the local shutdown versus state, maybe there is whatever, one or two people who come from far away, but not to sound cold and callous, but that's not, I don't know, we're going to shut the town down because two people have to...
When they say get their cars off the roads, that's what they...
you gotta look at both ways. If Borough Hall's, like on a day like Monday, if we have a foot of snow, are people coming in here...
Get permits?
To get permits or, file paper or ask for open requests? Probably not. I don't see...
it's not nothing that it's so essential that you can't wait a day.
No, I said even if they want to pay their taxes, they could pay it at the police department. Right, I've done that, so...
Just for a point of reference, and maybe just give you a little basic information, some of the surrounding towns have closed their municipal offices during the past storms. If you have noticed that, Maywood has been pretty good about it. Teaneck has been pretty good about it. Hackensack has been pretty good about it. That's basically non-essential personnel. They closed the borough offices, the notifications. Point of information, New York.
Yeah, no, we've done it.
Okay.
But we don't do it every time the governor declares a state of emergency.
I don't know if we personally, especially as a public school employee, I don't necessarily want to create a policy, because the problem with the policy is they're not flexible. I think that the mayor should be generous or cautious towards the public, towards the non-essential safety, and we should be closing, when it's clear there's being no business, as Councilman Mignon pointed out, due to the weather, and there is no need to bring in our non-essential employees. I would be comfortable leaving it in the mayor's hand, but as a council member, I'd like to say publicly, I think we should be erring on the side of safety for the non-essential employees, rather than considering whether the PBA is going to agree with us or not. I think we have to deal with it as two separate things. I know other people may disagree with me on this. We need to address that sort of an issue by itself. I don't think we should be making decisions saying, well, they might grieve, so that's why we didn't close. I don't think that is a prudent or appropriate part of the calculation. I think the calculation is there going to be any borough business? Are we placing our people in jeopardy? And is there going to be any demand by the public on our employees? If they're not coming in, if there's no demand on the public, if productivity is going to be limited, and we have a safety concern, I think that has to be decided by the mayor. But I don't think, in all due respect, that it should have anything to do with this potential grievance, because I don't think that that's how we should move forward, for whatever it's worth. That's my thoughts.
Kathleen?
I think one of the issues that some of the employees had last time was that they were asked to use their vacation days or holiday days for when, they asked to go home early. They found they did not like that, to have to do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. If we're saying that it's bad enough that we're considering closing, then it should be a liberal policy. It should be saying, you're not essential, the weather's bad, we're going to start... Because I think then what you're doing is you're putting people in an impossible situation. So you're basically saying to them, we're going to penalize you or punish you for being forced to consider your safety. I have a problem with that.
So it is a policy of sorts, and the policy is that if we're closed, then it's the expectation that they do not have to use their own time.
Okay, then I would support that. I would definitely support that.
But the hourly employees just don't get paid, so...
Which is a hardship, but I'd rather consider their safety first.
They have to accept that.
So the hourly employees would not get paid
Full and part-time salary?
Yeah, the full and part-time get their regular number of hours in the event that the Borough Hall is closed for a snow emergency.
And that's based on the declaration of the mayor.
So I throw another little question in here. If you're a hourly employee, the borough office is closed, you're here, you say, I'm not going home. Are they forced to go home and take the time?
If they close Borough Hall, yes.
They're paid up to the time they're here. So if the mayor called, oh, we're closing at noon, and they were here from 9 to 12, they'll get paid from 9 to 12, and then they have to leave at 12. That's,
What if they work, their normal work day is before?
but the borough closes.
Borough Hall
You're
closed.
just an hourly employee.
You're an hourly
so
employee.
You get paid till, I don't think there'd be a problem with that. They would understand it's, Hurricane Sandy, come on.
I'm discounting the safety issue for an individual person. I'm talking
No, I
about
know.
the more broader aspect of the full-time employees, the part-time employees, the quote salaried people are paid. I can see somebody saying, fine, I'll go home, but I should be compensated because I would stay. Normally I would stay, I'm willing to stay, but you're making me go home.
But I think by hourly
Just
employee, you
Yeah, I
have an
know.
expectation.
Playing devil's advocate.
Get paid for
Playing
the
devil's
hours.
advocate.
They can make up those, Alan could work on an individual basis with them making up their
You know,
hours.
the other way to approach it is, and I don't want to go this route, you can give people a bank of personal days and then say, that's what those are for. But then you're adding a benefit, and then that does come to a point where you have a grievance issue. But that might be something we looked at the line and say, you know what, you get 3 personal days, and they're used for those kind of situations. That's usually what, I've had in the private sector when I worked with private sector. You had that kind of time off for, your personal decision if you don't want to come in due to snow or some other emergency. The police have personal time, they have X days, which is equivalent personal time, so.
Yeah,
our-
Just to respond to Al, I think it could be interpreted
Police have X
to the
days.
part-time employee.
Or
The
non-contractual.
individual is off-duty because the borough hall is closed. So if you're off-duty, whether or not they want to stay for shelter, that's something aside, but they're off-duty. That's how I would interpret it.
Yeah, that's how it works in the past. I know I have hourly employees, and we get canceled for storms, in the years of my business, and that's it. It's all, going home.
They don't get paid.
They don't get paid. I mean, sorry, but, yeah, I'm not trying
Throwing
to...
out a-
No, I know, it's double that.
A scenario that I saw.
I mean, I just myself, if they
In
decide,
the position I was in, I was fortunate enough that if I had that situation, we sent somebody home because of a natural disaster, we paid them. Because they were there, they were willing to work. No. It was kind of the opposite if they were coming in. We closed the office because, of a particular situation, then they weren't paid. But if they were there,
Was that private sector?
yes.
Alan?
So perhaps the way we could leave this, Mayor, is that if it's acceptable to you, if you put a call into the police desk, and we instructed the police desk that you would leave a message anytime, day or night, as to whether Borough Hall would be closed the following morning, whether there'd be a late arrival. And certainly if it's an early dismissal, we would reach out to you, because that means everybody's here. But before the start of the workday, if you would call the desk, and then our employees would have that number, they could contact the desk and check in and say, is Borough Hall closed? Do we have a late arrival that morning? What's the story? And they could receive that word that way, before the start of the workday.
Okay.
You also could send a nixle out like the other towns do also.
Well, at least I could tell the employees, here's the number for the desk, call in, and they'll have word as to whether you should report or whether it's closed or whether...
But I do think informing the public that the borough is
It's
closed is
yeah,
an
because, I
important
mean,
thing to do.
because Maywood
You may have a
sends
resident
out the
walking
day
up here
before,
to
so you know
do
they're
an
closed,
instead
but-
of something like that.
Yeah.
They're
I know George Collins.
They close it,
Yeah, but that would be the way to get it to the public.
Yes, the public should know, needs to know also.
All right.
That makes sense.
Anything else? Ellen?
Can we have an update from the Community Center Subcommittee in the near future before we continue our conversation about funding?
Yes.
Thank you.
Somebody want to give an update?
And it doesn't have to be now, I don't know when we're having this, if we're
We-
proceeding with this conversation, or... no.
We had a preliminary meeting, and we decided that in order to move forward in a due diligence way, we have to get input on programming, so that once we know what the programming is going to be, then we can make a decision as to whether the existing building is feasible. So we need input from SCORE, from recreation, from Mayor's Wellness, from Historical, from the
Cultural.
OEM,
Cultural.
from the Cultural Center, as to what their space and programming needs are. And so we have to either form another little committee or bring those groups together for a meeting and...
We could send somebody out to
And get
get the
input.
data and then come back to give it to...
Yeah, we need that data.
I would be
And then-
willing to go get the data, to...
Well, but we have liaisons that liaise, with those groups too. Is that something that the liaison should be doing, or is the
No
subcommittee
there's
going to
no
do? Is
liaison
one
with the
person
Cultural
do
Center.
that? Okay, well, then maybe somebody can just step up and do that.
We have the subcommittee. Let's not water down the process even more. The subcommittee sends out a memo to each of these departments saying, by this date, give me what your program of requirement is, and then if we want to gather the heads of these commissions, departments, and whatnot, then we will do that. Because I need the data to formulate a program of requirements. Then the next step is to interview and retain the services of an architect who will take the written data and start transforming it into a plan. Plan will beget size, plan will beget wish list and needs list, and plan will also give us the opportunity to, for the first time since we started to talk about this, see exactly what is that we're talking about. So
I mean, I think we're all familiar with all of these programs.
But we don't know, we need to talk about what is their master plans. How many people do they be having for an activity? How often do they expect to use space? Is it a space that we actually want to be able to generate revenue from?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of programming. We know what scores needs are. So you have to get all that together and say, we have a building that could be used 5 days a week or 7 days a week by 300 people, or do we have a building that's going to be used by 50 people 3 days a week? That's what we're trying to gather. And then once you start with that, then you can come up with plans, and then based on potential budgets, then you either do something, or you come up with a phased approach, or you
Well, like the
go with
rec department
a zero
gives us-
alternative.
They give us like a report every year, and it says, we service 300 kids during the summer,
But it's got to be more. It's got to be what they would plan to do. I think it's got to be a little more detailed than
Yeah, I mean,
that.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should ask Alan to send out those letters immediately or whenever it is, as the earliest possible convenience, and we just need to set a date for it to come back to you so that we can move forward. I think 2 to 3 weeks would seem reasonable, because I think all these organizations know really what they want, but now we have a formal document stating it.
I agree. I don't know whether it's that, if you want to do that quickly. I think what happens is people they may think they know, but until now, where something may be a reality, and I don't want somebody I want these groups to think about it. So if the rec has to meet with the commission and they decide, they want to run camp there, look at their numbers, how many kids they think they're going to have, what hours they're going to need, what kind of space requirements, what kind of facilities. I don't disagree. You can disagree. The mayor or Rita can disagree, but I want more than just
We only got one shot at this.
I want a realistic view of what their blank slate.
I agree. So what would be a reasonable date?
I don't know. I'm just thinking at least a month in case the commission has to meet, or if they want to meet with their membership.
Just a
Wherever
point
the
of
natural schedule.
clarification. You send this letter out, it's going to be received a couple different ways. The cultural center might receive it and say, oh, they want to relocate us into that building. What space do I need for that?
Alan's
The
right.
recreation might say, well, we usually run a little arts and crafts under the pavilion, but it would be great to have a little space to put the kids inside and do it there. So they'll look at it as a new opportunity to get some sheltered space. So I think you may need different letters for different groups.
I don't even know about letters at this point.
No.
I know from doing this job for 2 years that you have to take baby steps, that many people receive information secondhand, thirdhand, and they start to scream that the sky is falling. This project is going to take a lot of foreign policy and ambassadorship. All the liaisons to these departments have to personally reach out, attend meetings, gather information, come back with their ideas, Then we can start putting stuff in writing, asking them for their input in writing. I think that's the way we have to go about it. If we just send out a memo saying, you know, if the cultural center gets a letter saying, you know, what would you do with a community center, they're going to think that the wrecking ball is on the horizon. Which right now we're just gathering information.
Reconnaissance.
So do you want to set a time frame for which the liaisons are to
I
gather
think-
that information?
Yeah, because if you don't set a time frame, nothing ever gets done. So if that information could come back by the
We
end
should
of
all have
March.
meetings in March to attend.
Well,
We can...
Every month we have liaison reports.
Right.
So by the time we have our next liaison reports, when you're reporting on your group, you can report on this issue, on what your service organization or committee or commission thinks about the idea of having what programming they would like to see in a community center.
And it can be existing or it can be new.
Yeah.
It's not...
But maybe we should ask them to qualify that. What would be your existing needs, and what would, because that's versus what would you like to see your future needs as?
At this point, we ask them for the wish list.
Yes.
It's not a need.
Yeah,
So
it's a
what
wish
is
list.
your wish list?
And we can...
Then it goes into the hands of, eventually goes into the hands of professionals. And from the wish list, you get to a reality check that determines the needs. This is the way it's going to be done.
Because the wish list is gonna say,
I don't
we
care what
want a basketball court,
Fine,
an in-ground
and
pool.
exactly.
That's what
Hot tub.
and
You
we-
get a Wii and it's a basketball game on it.
No, you will get some groups or some people who are going to say, yeah, we should be building a full-scale facility that has, you know, gym facilities and basketball and this
pool.
and that's going to be a $2 million project. So...
Which we're not funding.
No, but you know what, but it may be something you can phase in over 10 years if you wanted to, but if that's what the needs of, or the desires of the community are, but let's start, you know, like I said,
Yeah.
we haven't gone anywhere, we're starting with baby steps and let's
Yeah.
start gathering
As long as
information.
it has some indoor bocce, I'll be impressed.
Is there a Wii bocce game?
I need a real thing.
Yeah.
Mayor, the wish list also may determine a phasing plan of implementation, because it is true, we only gonna get one shot at doing this. So if well into the design process and the design development process, we may decide to do a two-story structure from a structural point of view, but leave the second story unfinished for the next phase. And that second story may house X, Y, and Z. We may decide to do with the proper French drain systems inside and outside of the foundation system. You may decide to go to a lower level. The bocce court may go in there, or the
bowling alley.
whatever. So the point is,
An indoor shooting range.
the point is, yeah, the approach is similar to, you know, the one used successfully when we went through the $30 million project of the high school renovation. A wish list determined by the various interest group, and then the wish list is inherited and is shaped into a program of action. You just keep building up the process. And like you always say at every meeting, we can't do everything for everybody every time.
That's right.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is there a concept of bringing in like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts into for meeting rooms and things like that?
I would think that,
I mean, I don't know where they meet now.
They meet at the library.
And St.
they meet at
Peter's
the school.
and
Cherry Hill. And they meet at the First
Grace
Congregational
Lutheran.
Church.
I think
all over the place.
it'd be for any public group who wants to use space and to be able to reserve space. I think that's the way I would
That
anticipate
would
it.
just be any public group.
right.
I think so. And I said, and there will be issues, because, you know, right now, they get space from Grace Lutheran, or they get from St. Peter's, whatever, and I don't know if they pay for any of that space. but-
They don't pay for it.
So,
Boy Scouts don't.
It just wasn't mentioned, and I didn't...
One of the
No, it's for
great
any-
things about our community is
They what?
that our houses of religion open their doors to the community. the Temple and Grace Lutheran and St. Peter's.
Like First Congregational, we've met
First
there for
Congregational.
years. They let us have their basement for free, no charge.
But it'd be good if we had
You know something?
public space that was available for, regularly scheduled activities, like for the seniors that want to meet. They're only meeting a couple hours a week at the Temple. If they wanted space so that they could meet 3 or 4 days a week, they would have it. If you wanted to have a public fundraising event, a private fundraising event, a private affair, you could rent that space.
Like right now in Oradell, they have a veterans place that they funded, they repaired, they do rent it out for private functions, so they do make money, yeah, so.
And don't forget, we're paying $20,000 a year to rent space at the Temple for 2 days a week. I mean, that's $20,000 that goes a long way towards operating costs or debt costs to build something, so, it may not be a net gain, but it's going to be, it's not going to be a full, outside cost. I think we're going to be able to absorb some cost under existing operating funds to do something, so.
I think we're also thinking, I know that the old VFW was used for different sort of family events, anniversary parties, things like that. I don't know if we could, but if we could rent out the space occasionally for private events, that would also be very helpful.
That's what I just said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we
Apologize.
Yeah, we think that's all, so, but again, that's a wish list thing, or programming issue. That's what we do. You have to put those kind of facilities in, plan for it.
Sorry, Ken.
No, that's okay, they were just saying Oradell, that's what they do, they refurbish their VFW and rent it.
Anything further? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
On Monday night, we will met with special events, and we have an